Hey guys, it's Rich with your Monday Spot on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we are talking about white supremacy and Odinism, and if any of that is a trigger for you, consider this your trigger warning. So, we have a lot of things to cover, and hopefully I can get it all done in a timely fashion, and hopefully I can speak, which has been a troublesome thing today. So anyway, this comes from highfantasy-soul, and they write, "Hi guys, recently religious extremism as an excuse for terroristic acts has been a hot topic. As someone who studies criminology, I know that white supremacy and radical political views are much more likely to lead to someone to commit a terroristic act, especially in America. But I was shocked to find out that many of these white supremacists actually claim to adhere to pagan religions such as Odinism. I've seen several news articles talking about this brand of terrorism, and most don't accurately portray Odinism, but rather describe it in a way that makes it seem as though it is custom fit for violent white supremacists. Could you talk about what role the pagan community should have in educating people on the pagan religions such as Odinism, what they truly are, and our role in calling out religious extremists in our own communities? Here are two examples of the articles about Odinism and terrorism. Thank you." All of those links, the entire topic question is all in the bottom bar, as per usual, and I am going to include another link that I have printed off, the odinistfellowship.co.uk, and let's talk a little bit about Odinism in general. This is from their questions and answers page, and I'm only going to highlight portions of this, so we get a working understanding of what Odinism actually is from the Odinists themselves, and not somebody that is reporting this stuff. And then we'll go into the news articles, and then my commentary on all of that stuff, and how we can combat all this. It says very plainly in the beginning, Odinism is the original indigenous faith of the English people. And then it goes on from there. Quote, "Odinism is the name we give to the original indigenous form of the heathen religion practiced by our forefathers, the Angles, Saxons, Jutes, and by the related Teutonic people of the continent. It is accordingly the ancestral native religion of the English people, and as such, our very own spiritual heritage." So, the way that the Odinists and Odinism follows is that it is a hereditary path or a hereditary practice, which is basically to be kept for those who are the descendants or have a hereditary line going back to one of the areas that are mentioned. So let's see in the next portion, what about other kinds of paganism? And it says, and this is the very last sentence or part of the very last sentence that I really want to highlight for people. It says, quote, "Odinism is one branch of the heathen family of religions that is practiced by the Teutonic people." And in the section of what kind of religion is Odinism and what are their beliefs, Odinism is, and this is quote, "Odinism is a life-affirming religion. Odinists value and esteem everything that sustains, promotes, enhances, and enriches life. Odinists do not see our life on earth as merely being a preparation for the life hereafter. We see it as the end of life itself, as something positive, good, and hallowed. We rejoice and celebrate all that is wonderful in the world around us, the fruitfulness of nature, the changing of seasons, the comforts of family and home, human creativity, and our personal and collective achievements. Odinists do not indulge in fasting and penitence. Rather, we worship the gods in our feasting and merrymaking." So, there's that. And again, this is to give you a broad overview of what Odinism is, and of the Odinist ethics. Quote, "Odinism," and I just want to say before I go any further that if I mispronounce something in this, I am completely sorry and I don't mean any offense. So anyway, here we go. In the paragraph of the Odinist ethics, quote, "Odinism is an ethical religion. If we are true Odinists who embrace the cause of the adhere, then it follows that we should act in a way which promotes and respects nature, order, life, and creativity while eschewing harmful and destructive behavior that threatens the well-being of the folk, faith, and family. Odinists place great emphasis on the concept of personal freedom and therefore repudiate all forms of totalitarianism, but accept the corollary of the necessary of a common law for the common good. Odinist ethics are not expressed in terms of prohibitions and commandments, but in terms of the positive virtues which all Odinists should aspire to practice. We call these the 9 noble virtues: courage, truth, honor, fidelity, discipline, hospitality, industriousness, self-reliance, and perseverance. So there's that. Again, this is to give you a broad overview. And the last portion that I want to quote for you guys from odinistfellowship.co.uk, again, links in the bottom, are from the Is Odinism a Missionary Religion? It is from the second paragraph in that section, and the second sentence. Odinists do not desire to convert the whole world to Odinism because whereas paganism is universal, the Odinist form of paganism is ethno-specific. Indeed, were we to receive a request to administer the Odinist pledge of faith to, say, a Japanese or Nigerian, we would encourage that person to embrace his indigenous form of heathenism because heathens of all nations believe in being true to oneself and one's ancestors. Okay, so how I see this ethno-specific practice as it can be seen as a type of racism. It really isn't. It's not meant to be. And I think that's important to note here because they're just trying to make you be true to who you are and where you come from hereditarily. Hereditarily? Ancestrally? I don't know if those are words. Anyway, so they want you to be true to who you are and who you come from, what areas you come from. They want you to be true to that. They want you to get back to the roots of where your practice would have been if you were to practice as your ancestors had practiced, if that makes sense. It's not to be malicious or, you know, we are white, therefore we are right. It is not to be that at all. It is to be the, hey, you know, you come from this area and, you know, you're not from this area and this is what your ancestors would have practiced. Maybe look into that stuff instead. I don't know if they would necessarily turn you away, but as heathens, they would say, you know what, be true to who you are and be true to your roots. Whereas me, as a, you know, very eclectic Christo-pagan that just borrows from everywhere, if I wanted to practice something that was outside of my hereditary path or my lineage, then I would say, okay, maybe I take parts of it. Not in a sense of cultural appropriation where I'm taking it and bastardizing it, but rather taking it and saying, you know what, I'm going to honor this part of this person's practice. Say, for instance, if I take parts of, let's see, what's a good one? Let's say that I take parts of Buddhist practices and I start incorporating them into my practice. Now, I'm not taking it from, let's say it's a Tibetan Buddhist way. I'm not taking it from the Tibetans and saying, okay, this is mine now, and I'm going to just do it and say that I'm doing it this way, and that's the way it's properly practiced. No. I'm going to say, you know what, I love how this is presented. I love the way that it works into my practice. I think it's a beautiful way of practicing. I will totally give you credit. And I will honor it in the best way that I can possibly honor it and keep it to its truest form. And if I do change something that fits my practice a little bit more, I'm going to say, hey, this is not how it's traditionally practiced. This is how I practice it. Not in a cultural appropriation, but knowing why I practice the way I do and honoring the original way and intent that it was practiced, if that makes sense. As a solitary, eclectic Christo-pagan, that's what I do. It's not to culturally appropriate anything, and I really don't like cultural appropriation, like doing something just because you think it's cool or whatnot. And I'm getting way off topic with a tangent here, I know this. But I like to take parts of it, honor the parts that are original, totally give them credit for the original parts, and say, you know what, this is how I've adapted it to work for my practice. So, anyway, that tangent over. We're going to go into the Southern Poverty Law Center article that is provided in the bottom bar, that as actually part of the 1998 winter issue. This came out on March 15th, 1998. So I'm going to go ahead and skip around here in the first section, and I kind of got bored of reading this because it's like, dude, you're just rambling on a lot of nonsense, and yeah, didn't really like this article. So I'm going to just go ahead and skip around here, and yeah, that's the way it's going to be. So in the first portion, before we even get to the Norse gods and the folk, as they titled it, before we even get there, we learn about a person that was a white supremacist and an Odinist. Okay, first, they clearly state that they were white supremacists first, and then became an Odinist. So, yeah, that's a thing. Okay, moving on from that, we go into the paragraph right before the Norse gods and folk, saying, Ostru is an effort to make religion more postmodern, hip, and appealing to a generation raised on rock music, says Karl Raschek, a religion professor in the University of Denver who has studied white supremacist groups. Okay, so I want to know what rock music has to do with white supremacy. This seems to be, to me at least, a lot of that satanic panic that came around in the early 90s, where everybody from friggin' James Dobson to Hank Hanegraaff to what was the one lady's name? The one that we did on exposing witchcraft, that lady, where everything was all about the satanic panic. Everything has to do with, people worshiping Satan. Nobody can have fun because fun is prohibited. So that's what this really seems to be to me, is that everything that is rock music and this and that is completely terrible. However, they neglect to see that this person was a white supremacist first and then became an Odinist. So, anyway, they go on to say about Nazi Germany and the SS being involved in Odinism, okay? And Teutonic mythology, blah, 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 all that stuff. So, Hitler actually discouraged such pursuits. It was more a Heinrich Himmler thing, not a Hitler thing, so yeah. Where that did play roles in certain parts of the SS, that was not the original intent of the Third Reich, okay? Not the overreaching, this is what everybody is practicing. No. In fact, some pagans were actually persecuted. So, boom, there you go. And then what really gets me is one of the bad people in this article. They have to mention that he was recently released from prison for serving a term of smuggling marijuana. Again, 1998, it was when this was written, or when this was released, and I have written here, drug fear, anyone? So, yeah, I basically, after that, stopped reading this because, 1998, satanic panic, everybody that is involved in doing any source of drugs, or listens to rock music or rap music or anything like that, all of a sudden, bad people. Moving on to the second article. This is from revealnews.org. So I don't know much about revealnews.org, but I'm kind of saying that they're probably not a reliable source. So, first part. I have marked as wrong. It says, quote, today's racist Odinists say it is the only pure religion for white people. And I'm going to unquote that. Okay. According to Odinists, they say it is not the only pure religion for white people. No. There are white people in other parts of the world where Odinism doesn't cover the Teutonic people. So, yes, there you go. Already, they're saying that all Odinists, or today's racist Odinists. So, the racists say this, which is already wrong. So, they're already wrong about what overall Odinists believe. Or at least the Odinist Fellowship. This is in London. So, any of my UK people out there, tell me what you think of this place. I don't know much about them. You know, quick searches and reading lots of stuff here and there, trying to compile all the holes here in this stuff. Okay, then we go on to this other story about Brandon Lashbrook. And I have here, taking one to identify the masses. Okay. And then I have here, Lashbrook has watched his town crumble around him. He scrapes together a living selling Odinist pendants and occult goods like satanic Bibles through a website and on Facebook. I have right here, Insight Panic here. And here, whenever they give a picture with him, this is from his Facebook, with him wearing Thor's hammer. So, Insight, even more panic. Oh my gosh, he's wearing some sort of religious symbol that is not the cross. Oh my gosh, that is so terrible. So, moving on from that guy, we have some law enforcement expert here that is saying any belief system that drives people to consider killing innocent civilians should be high on the minds of law enforcement, said Lowell Smith. Okay, we're just going to call him Mr. Smith, a former probation officer who spent 15 years working with white supremacists across America. Just because that religion isn't mainstream doesn't mean the next terrorist isn't out there plotting an attack in the name of an obscure god. It only takes one of these guys, Smith said. It only takes one. Okay. Here's what I wrote. It only takes one for you to condemn an entire religion. So what you're saying is that this one person who is committing these terroristic acts in the name of one deity that you haven't heard about is all of a sudden obscure, but you're saying that this one person dictates whether you watch an entire group of people that follow the same deity. Okay, so every single Christian now that has gone to prison or is a child molester or that is an extremist of any sort, that means I have to judge everybody else according to that. There's a problem in your conclusions. You're jumping to conclusions and you don't have a mat. Points if you get that one. Okay, so one thing that really stood out to me was the way that they wrote this. It's very pro-administration, and I'm going to read this verbatim. Quote, Trump has spoken with his predecessor by explicitly calling some terrorist acts radical Islamic extremism. And he has set his sights squarely on eradicating radical Islam, whether at home or abroad. End quote. So, just the way that they say this, it's very pro-administration. So, I kind of know where they're coming from here. I kind of work with some of these people, and yeah. So, just going to put that out there of how this is being written and how this is being geared towards certain things. And then they completely switch gears, which doesn't make any damn sense. They say, just as a tiny faction of extremists has twisted Islam to inspire terrorists to go out and kill people, strains of Odinism are driving American terrorists to wage their own form of jihad. So, in saying that, they are already saying that it is strains. It's little tiny parts. It's not all of Odinism, but you're willing to create this entire panic about an entire faith-based system because of a few people. Okay. Just so I know where you're coming from in your bigoted ways. This is one that really gets me. Okay, this is about Anders Breivik, I think is his name. It says, I am an Odinist. I believe in the only god Odin. End quote. Okay. Odinists are polytheists, which means many gods, not the only god, Odin. So, Breivik, you're out. You're already, as we have already read, Odinists are primarily polytheists, and I don't think any Odinist would say that is the only deity, even in Odinism. So, yeah, we're going to go on to talk about Leo Felton. So, I'm going to jump through this stuff, and the one thing that really got me was he had gone to prison a Catholic, but on the inside, he hooked up with fellow white supremacists and met dozens of Odinists. So, where's a link from Catholicism to white supremacy? And, not only that, he was in prison, I believe it said, for almost killing a Cuban-American taxi driver in an assault in New York City. So, while he was in prison, he went from Catholic to Odinist, and he was already a white supremacist before that. So, I'm not seeing how him being an Odinist and white supremacy is directly related or directly linked. So, yeah, I'm not really taking whoever wrote this seriously at all. I don't even know who wrote this, and I really could care less. As long as if they stop writing, BS, I'm good with that. But towards the end, it says, quote, while only a small minority end up manifesting their hatred as violence like Felton did, the threat of homegrown Odinist terrorists is more real than ever in today's America, said Daryl Johnson, who spent 6 years as a senior domestic terrorism analyst in the Department of Homeland Security. It's a jihadist view, he said. Extremists tend to hijack these religions and these beliefs and adopt them into their worldview and use them for justification for carrying out violent attacks. So, end quote. So, as with any religion, they're doing this with many other religions too. They're finding the parts in religions that, can feed into their hate and justify their hate so they can continue to hate and feel justified about it. So, therefore, it's not just happening to one religion, it's happening to a lot of religions out there. And instead of being up in arms about all of them being hijacked and putting this as the purpose of your entire article, instead of saying, hey, they're hijacking many religions, and you know what? We need to fight back about this, which we're going to do in a second. But first, I want to say, for Felton, however, the jihad is a thing of the past. He became a white supremacist as a young man in prison, driven partly by anger and confusion about his own lineage, and partly by an inherent segregation of the prison system. But a few years ago, after sending off for a DNA test and discovering that he was descended from a Yoruba, an ethnic group living in what is now southwestern Nigeria, he embraced his African lineage. And I have written here, 700 Club, happy ending. You will probably see him on that whenever he gets out of prison and whatnot, or whenever, the 700 Club picks up his story. Because, that's the type of stuff that they just drool over. And yeah, that's going to be lovely to see that, because it's just going to be a bunch of BS like they usually do. Anyway, overall, we've heard a lot of information. How can we actually take this information and say, you know what, guys, this isn't what these people are believing? How can we spread this news? Well, for one, we have the pagan perspective. That's just one modality. You have all of YouTube. You have the interwebs. You have blogs. You have Facebook. You have Twitter. You have Instagram's a thing now. You know, Snapchat is a thing now. We have so many modalities to spread the news that a billboard, renting out a billboard, is not even worth it. If we can educate even through the modalities of the internet that we have available to us, we would be unstoppable of getting the actual truth out there to people who have fallen for this BS rhetoric of this stuff and of this stuff. So we would be able to combat the BS rhetoric and all of that stuff if we just, sent out the information to them and said, hey, your story is incorrect, or your story is one-sided. These people are not bad. It is a select few people, just like all of Muslims aren't bad because of, a percentage of their people, a small percentage of their people, just like not all Christians are bad because of the Westboro Baptist Church. You don't have that same correlation between a religion in paganism to an extremist person. One person does not dictate what the rest of the belief system is. So if you tweet this out, if you share it on Facebook, if you share it with family or friends, or if you have a blog, write about it in your blogs. I know there are several people out there that have blogs and whatnot, so write about this type of stuff. Let people know how angry it gets you, because, this is an injustice. This is how people are having that type of satanic panic view that you can obviously tell this gets me worked up, because, you know what? I've dealt with this. I've seen this in Christianity, and I've seen this in paganism, and I've seen it with multiple religions where people are just being taken, where people are having judgments pressed upon them because of what people think they believe, like what a person thinks another person believes, rather than actually asking them, having these intellectual and intelligent conversations back and forth of, hey, what do you believe? And by the way, why do you believe that? Those are impactful questions. Those are important questions if you're going to have an open dialogue with people. Having this open dialogue between one another is so vastly important. Asking questions and giving the other person a chance to respond, and actually listening to it and absorbing it. So I know that there were many comments on last week's Pagan Perspective video that I did last week. I haven't gotten a chance to respond to them yet, but hopefully by the time this goes up, I will have a chance to respond to them. And if you guys have anything to say, about any of this stuff, go ahead and put it in the bottom bar. If you have a topic that you would like to submit for the Pagan Perspective, in the bottom bar, there is a link to the Pagan Perspective blog, which will tell you how to send in your topic suggestions and whatnot. And we have past topics that have been covered that you can also go in there and see if the topic has already been covered. So be sure to click on those links if you have not done so already, and submit topics. We're always looking for topics, so do that. Comments below in the comment sections. And that's all that I have for this week, and I'll see you guys next week. So until then, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye-bye.